Morning, everyone. Chris Durrell here, aka Jaeger Bombs, here for the Auto Club 400 today. Happy race day, everyone. Hope you had a successful Xfinity. It's been a crazy weekend for me. We ended up taking off Friday night. I'm just going to kind of go over a few stories here before we get a few people in here, and then I'll jump into the race. So yeah, if you're not into hearing anything about my exciting weekend, then you can probably go grab a coffee, grab your sheet, load the NASCAR sheet, get your lineups up. I'm just going to wait for a few more people to pop in. I know we're going to be popping in today. So we took off Friday night and we drove about 4 hours. My oldest kid is in curling regional finals this week, so we went up and watched that. She ended up getting second in that event, which sends her automatically. The top two teams go to provincials next week. Now, the shitty part about that is she's not going to be able to attend because we leave for Phoenix on Friday. We're going to the NASCAR race next weekend. Going to be there live, going to do the live show from the track, and then going to have some content out throughout the week as well. And then after that race is over, we're staying for the week to do spring training baseball. We've actually got a family friend that's in the Giant system now, so he's in AA. So he'll be there for the spring training. So I'm going to do some videos, some content for baseball, preseason baseball stuff leading up to the season. Going to do that from Phoenix as well. So that's what I am up to. Just loading my sheet here. I'm going to share some links for you. I'm here for 3 different sites. First of all, here for rotorpros.com. Work for them. So I'm going to share with you right now. Dane Chanot did his article, post-qualifying article. You can check out. He's got all his picks on there as well. You can hit us up in the Slack chat. We will be there to answer your questions right up until lock. So that gives you one thing. And then the second one would be dfsr.com. You can head over if you are a member of dfsr.com. I've got a new place where I share my sheets. It's called Chris's Corner. So you can go over there and you can grab those sheets there if you're a member on that page, or you can go over to my Patreon page. And I'm just going to bring that up here as well. That is the third option. That's just a place where I share my sheets for anyone that maybe doesn't want to jump into a full subscription to a website or anything like that. You can use my Patreon, and that is a $5 a month per sport, or $10 a month gets you all sports. And I do 6 sheets. I do NBA, PGA, NASCAR, NHL, MLB, NFL, missing one here somewhere, NBA. If there's a sport and it's got stats I can put into a spreadsheet, I'm all over it. Okay, so I'm just going to share you a link with that Patreon, and then we'll finish up that stuff, and we'll continue on into the race here. We've got about 12 people in the chat here so far. Got some people talking. I'm going to get Yeah, no problem with content, man. Phoenix is going to be a blast. Thanks, Quadix enthusiasts. It's going to be a good time. Hoping to get down in the pits, possibly. Get some autographs, stuff like that. Race on Sunday. Possibly heading to the Xfinity race on Saturday as well. So I'm going to have content for that. Going to be talking about that. Going to have the sheet out. Maybe do a live video for Xfinity as well. We'll see how the day goes. I don't really know until I get there. I get there late Friday night, somewhere in there. So I got all the links shared there. Morning, Rick. Morning, Kenny. How's it going, bud? Andrew Suarez, safe for cash. Before I jump into the picks, I also just want to have a shout out to my youngest daughter. Just turned 6 today. So March 1st is her birthday. I had to wait a little bit longer because of the leap year, but she turned 6 today, and she is being so good sitting down the bed with her mom right now, waiting for me to finish this video so that she can open her present that I got her. I'm not going to say it because she might just be watching right now, not 100%. Then we got a full day planned for her, so I'm not going to get to see the entire race today. So I'm going to be following along on my phone for the most part because we're taking her. There's this bouncy castles and a bunch of different things for young kids. And then, of course, after that, her and her friends are coming over, and we're going to have a pizza party. Excited for that. So first question that was asked here was Suarez. I did highlight him. Looking at his times, first thing that stands out obviously this week is the place differential coming from qualifying. And he qualified 31st. He's not in, per se, he's not in the Joe Gibbs equipment. He's in the 96 this year. But coming back, it's nice to see that he has had some success here. In his 3 races at Fontana, he's finished 7th, 23rd, and 13th. So I really like that. That really stands out to me. And then starting 31st. At that price at $6,400 on DraftKings, especially on FanDuel at $4,500, you don't need a top 20 finish exactly for him to pay off. He finishes 20th. You're going to get 11 bonus points for that as well. You're going to get the finishing position points. He's probably going to have possibly some fast laps in there as well. So I think he's definitely viable for cash, especially on FanDuel at just 4,500. It's just so much cheaper. That's right, straight black coffee. It's way too early for me to not have straight black coffee. Okay. Oh, yeah, can get in there. Check out my sheets. Like I said, I've been adding a little bit more content as well this season with the Patreon has allowed me to not only provide just a cup sheet, but I got back to providing Xfinity sheets, and I'm actually in the midst. My oldest daughter actually is working for me now in terms of cheat sheets and stuff like that. She's doing a lot of manual entry for me. That's helped me a ton in bringing back the Xfinity sheet this year, and she's actually helping me build a huge database of track history, track type history, that sort of thing. And once we have that up and running, we're going to integrate the truck series as well. There's no timetable on that at the moment, but we're hoping here, by the time we get back from Phoenix, which would be the 15th of March, we're going to try and work on it to maybe by April. We're going to have a truck sheet out there as well, so we can have that information as well, because I know a lot of people playing trucks. I know for sure in our Roto Pros, Kenny has been absolutely killing it in terms of NASCAR this season so far. And using my sheets and stuff, he's really, really good at lineup construction. So for any Roto Pros members out there, anyone that wants to jump into Roto Pros, definitely hit Kenny up in terms of, once you build your player pool, you got the, if you're building 20 lineups and you've got maybe 8 to 10 drivers that you're going to mix in, definitely hit him up and ask him some questions about his lineup construction. It's been very well. Me and Dane obviously in there as well. I don't play as many lineups. It's more of a time thing for me. If I do have time, like today, I think I'm going to have time with a 3:30 p.m. Eastern lock. I'm probably going to get in. Usually play like the $4 single entry, the $3 3 max. There's a $5 3 max, I believe, as well. I play the happy hour, which is the 20 max. And then if I have time, I'm going to put another 20 into the $4 20 max as well. I don't use the same 20 lineups in the $1 as the $4 or the 3 max. I use different strategies for each contest that I'm in. Kenny really helped me with that as well. So in terms of we've got Martin Truex starting right at the back, going to be super chalk, very high owned. Probably going to get him in my higher buy-in tournaments just because I think it's important there, whereas I will take a risk and maybe fade and be a little bit contrarian in my, if you're going in 25-cent contests, 5-cent contests, the dollar ones, stuff like that. That's where you maybe want to take your risk and be a little bit more contrarian in terms of NASCAR. If you're multi-entered, if you're playing just one lineup, you almost have to have Martin Truex in there. He's starting right at the back. Let's look at his practice times. He's actually number one in my model because of that. So if you're looking at the model, you're new to the sheet this year, make sure I've added right beside qualifying, which is in just if you're looking at the sheet here, that is column BP, which is qualifying inverse. So all I'm doing there is just taking the qualifying order, which is in BQ. I'm reversing that. So first to 40th, and then I'm going to flip that to 40th to first, just so that we can weight a little bit more, get a little bit more in our model in terms of the tracks where we're looking at place differential. That's your Daytonas, your Talladegas, Michigan, Fontana, Indianapolis, even a little bit. That's more a little bit flatter, but a little bit different, but still the same concept. Just a little bit better way to get some weight on that place differential upside. So obviously he's number one. He's got a minus 29 in that area, starting 38 this week. Looking at his final practice times, he was 19th in the one lap time. Kind of concerning, I guess. That's the one lap. 10 lap averages, he was third though. So once you get going 5, 10, 15 lap, I don't have that information up here, but I believe he was first in 15 and 20 lap averages as well. So he's got a good long run car as well. So I think a top 10 is definitely not out of the question. So if you don't have Truex, especially if you're playing cash games, you're going to get crushed if he finishes with the top 10 finish, because he's going to gain so many points just with place differential alone. And then his finishing position, probably going to get some fast laps, even possibly some laps led, heading into that final stage. Vroom, vroom, Ryan. Happy Sunday, buddy. Bubba Wallace. Okay, so looking at Bubba, starting, not really interested in. He did show a lot of speed. He was third in practice 2, 16th in practice 1. Didn't show any long run speed. He was almost dead last, second to dead last in 10 lap averages in that final practice. Starting 14th is just too scary for me for a driver like Bubba, not in the greatest equipment. He's finished 20th and 30th here in his 2 races. So I kind of see his upside is maybe like a 15th place finish, and that's, -1 place differential from where he started. So I personally will have 0 Bubba Wallace today. If you want to go away from, seeing as we're talking in that range, if you want to go away from Daniel Suarez, who's likely going to be the chalk because of where he started, I do like going with rookie Tyler Reddick today. He is starting, let's look here. He started 19th. He was fast in practice. He was 3rd in practice 1, 14th in practice 2, and then he ran a 10-lap average in practice 2 as well. He was 8th there. So he's actually 4th in my practice model. And what I'm doing with my practice model right now is looking at the lap times, the single lap times, the fast lap for each driver, averaging those 2, and then ranking them. He was number 4 in that area. And starting 18th, I think he's, starting 19th. I don't see a top 10. It could happen. I think his upside is probably somewhere in that 7 to 10 range, but I think his floor, starting 19th there, is probably like a 15th place finish. And I think that's perfectly fine for 6,700, 68 on FanDuel. So Tyler Reddick's one that I'm looking to if you're wanting to get away from maybe some of that Daniel Suarez chalk. I've had a lot of people ask me this morning about drivers even well below that. I'm not really looking at any guys way down there. Maybe in your contrarian builds. First of all, reminder, Ryan Preece engine change is going to the rear on pace laps, so he keeps his starting position, which was 23rd, but he will start from the back. That automatically pushes Martin Truex Jr. up from 38th to 37th, whereas Preece is now starting 38th, so he's going to start with a -18, math, place differential to start the race. So definitely off on Ryan Preece. Couple guys that maybe stand out, top 30 in my model down here. Priest was one, but that's going to hurt him big time. Michael McDowell's 27th in my model. He is starting 8th, so that's a no for me. Corey LaJoie starting 26th. That's a no for me. I do like LaJoie. He has had some success here. If you're looking at the new grid, 31st and 30th isn't bad, but for those kind of results, if you're looking at 30th place finish from a guy like Corey LaJoie, you need him starting like 35th and back so you can capitalize on those place differential points for those min-price guys. I just not seeing a whole lot of that this week. Timmy Hill starting 37th. He's now pushed up to 36th. He's finished 33rd, 35th, 39th. Not really into that either. And then just going down even lower than that, there's just really no one there. So really the lowest I'm going is like Suarez, Reddick. Right above that, a couple value plays I'm liking right now is Matt DiBenedetto. He showed some speed in that 21 car early in the year. He was 5th in opening practice, 9th in final practice, and he was 12th in 10-lap averages. He is starting 12th, so there's a little bit of risk there with that. I think he's a little bit more of a GPP play on DraftKings. I think you could consider him for sure on FanDuel, but I don't think we need to go there for cash. I think we can go down to Reddick and Suarez for cash games, but for GPPs, DiBenedetto's definitely there. I'll have a little bit more exposure on FanDuel just with the place differential worth half as much. Finishing position, definitely emphasis on that. And him starting 12th, I do see his upside right around a top 5, 5th to 8th, somewhere in there. I see his floor kind of around a 10th to 15th. So I think he can pay off his price for sure. There's a good chance that he will pay off his price, but there's just a little bit more risk with him starting a little bit more forward. Before I go into a few more, I'm just going to look at these questions before they scroll too far away and I lose them. 72% Truex, that too low? I don't think so. It depends. I think you're talking GPPs. In GPPs, I'm thinking he's probably going to be around that 70%. He should probably be higher, but if he's got 70%, you really want to go overweight on him, you're probably going to want 80%, somewhere in there. Fade him, say 16 out of 20 lineups, maybe even 17 out of 20 lineups if you're doing the 20 max. Fit Truex in there. This would be, say, like your $4, and then if you go down to your $1, you could totally flip that around and do, say, 4 out of 20 with Truex and 16 out of 20 without Truex and do the fade that way. Is kind of the way I look at it. Or if you want, like 73% isn't bad. One thing I will say, someone definitely mentioned this morning, are we 100% all in on Truex? Never, never, never. That will always be my answer. I'm never 100% on any driver in NASCAR. There's way too much variance to absolutely load up. One little tiny thing goes wrong, blown tire into the wall, engine, front brakes, into someone else's crash. Things like that happen every single race. Rain comes right after a driver pits, and all of a sudden he's stuck on pit road. The race ends and he ends up dead last. There's too many variables to go 100% on any one driver in NASCAR, unless obviously if you're doing like just one max single entry tournament. Obviously that's 100% if that's your only lineup, or 3 max if you want to go all 3 of your lineups and that's all you're doing is that 3 max. If you go 100% Truex, I think that's fine. If you're only doing 3, I would definitely suggest doing 2 with Truex and then 1 without. I still, even in that 3 max, don't like going 100% on any one driver because it can totally crush your day with just one driver crash, one anything. Too much variance. Yeah, Kenny's got around 72%. I know he mentioned that earlier, so that really fits. Jones over Hamlin. Let's look at that. So just off a price, yes, he's $1,100 cheaper, especially on FanDuel. He is $2,200, $2,300 cheaper. So I definitely like that. And they're starting 25th and 28th, 29th and 28th. So they're kind of starting right there. I like pairing them together. Jones has got 12th, 7th, and 19th here in the past. Hamlin comes in with 3 top 10s in his last 4 races and 6.5 average finish over the last 2. So that would be just the last 2 years. They only race here once a year. So looking at the track history grid, which is new to the sheet as of, I want to say last week. Either way, the track history grids there shows you the last 10 races with average finishes for the last 2, 5, and 10 races. And then we move over and we've got the actual, instead of each individual race, we've combined them all together for number of wins, top 5s, top 10s, depending on which way you like to look at it. I found a lot of success with that track history grid. It helps me a lot more in breaking down driver versus driver, not just looking at average finish over X amount of races, just because you can actually see the context of where they actually finished, not just it was a top 10, it was a top 5, it was a top 20, what really happened. Going to be adding more to that as well, like average running position and stuff like that. As this database of mine builds, it's just going to add how much more I can actually add to the sheets. So if you find, before I get into any more picks, if you do ever find that there's maybe too much data going on in the sheet, if you'd maybe like it separated into separate tabs that you can go like down the bottom, there's a cheat sheet, there's the entry list, which is huge. If you're, building stacks and stuff like that, you want to know what drivers are on what teams, who's in what manufacturer. If you go to the entry list tab at the bottom, right beside cheat sheet, you can actually manufacturer as well. So make sure to check that out. If there's anything you want added, anything that's maybe too much, reach out anytime, either in the RotoPros chat. I think my internet kicked out here. Someone just throw something in chat if you can still hear me here while I'm talking. My timer's going, but there, I think we're back live. I don't know if that cut out for anyone, but I got a thing saying my internet sucks. Didn't say that, but that's pretty much what it said. Live literally in the middle of nowhere, and it's a windstorm. My shed's about to blow away. I'm surprised. I don't know if you can hear that tinny sound outside, but it's been driving me absolutely insane. Yeah, I didn't sit there and talk to myself, just so you didn't know. I didn't waste any fantasy knowledge just sitting there talking to myself when that message came up. So it's good that I'm back. If I go out again, just let me know. Jet lag. Awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll up and see if I missed any questions while that was going on. Who do you think will win? Okay, well, I hate always picking a winner, but right now, just kind of looking at practice time, stuff like that, comparing the whole thing. I really like Ryan Blaney. I like the way he's been trending this season. He's got a lot of speed this week. He was 9th and 2nd in practice 1, practice 2, 4th in 10 lap averages, 5th in my overall practice model. He's starting 16th. Doesn't really bother me that much. There's going to be a little bit of draft in here at this race. Nothing like Daytona, Talladega, obviously, but I don't think it'll take long for him to get up inside the top 10 for sure. And then as the race goes on, I think he's got the car that can get up there, maybe even stage 2, later into stage 2. I think he can get up, lead some laps, and be a dominator in this race as well. So that's something I am definitely going to be looking at. I'm actually going to bring up, I know someone had asked, I forget who, I will shout out to him, even though I don't remember who it was, had asked for, last year I had the last 6 races at each track. That tab was at the bottom of my sheet. I told him I'd add it back this week. I failed big time. I will add that again for next week. for you and for everyone else. He had some special formulas that he put together, looking at that data, looking at like green flag passes or fast laps or, average running position and that sort of stuff. So I will add that. It will be last 10 races instead of last 6. So I will have that up. But looking at laps led, last year we had Denny Hamlin started 21st. Wow. Totally on the wrong race here. Let's get things back on track here. Get the train back on the track, Chris. Come on. Okay, so Kyle Busch won last year. He started 4th. He led 134 laps. Brad Keselowski started 13th. He led 42. Those were the only 2 guys with double-digit laps led. Year before that, Martin Truex Jr. started from the pole, dominated the race, 125 laps led. Kyle Busch had 62 from the 2nd position. Year before that, 2017, Kyle Larson won from the pole. So kind of seeing a trend here lately that your dominator and your race winners coming from that top 5 come from the pole twice in the last 2 or 3 races here that I mentioned and has led 100+ laps. Kyle Larson led 110 in 2017. Martin Truex Jr. started 4th, led 73. No one else had double-digit laps led. Going back into 2016, Jimmy Johnson won from the 19th starting position. He only led 25 laps, so his average running position during that race was 6th. So he kind of looking. Yeah, I don't have to see exactly when he pulled up into the top 10. I have to go back and look at that race. But Kevin Harvick started 2nd in that race, led a race high 142 laps. So we're seeing our dominator coming from that top 5. So not necessarily do I think Blaney's going to be the full dominator, but I think he can be, if we see one driver with 100+ and another one driver with, say, 40 or 50, I think he can be one of those 40 or 50. The guys that we're looking at maybe starting top 5 that I think have a good shot at dominator. So looking at the top 5, I'm just going to sort the sheet. Sorry for anyone that is on the sheet. Should have made a copy, but I didn't for this. So we got Clint Bowyer, Jimmy Johnson, Alex Bowman, Kurt Busch, and Kevin Harvick starting top 5. Out of those 5 starting top 5, where we've seen a lot of the dominators come from, I like Alex Bowman a lot. He was 1st in opening practice, 1st in final practice. He was also 1st in 10-lap averages in both of those practices. He's got short run speed. Looks like he's got some excellent long run speed. The Chevys have been extremely fast, so that's kind of a trend I'm looking at this week is maybe in a certain amount, not so much stacking them together, but having a lot of exposure to the Chevys over the other manufacturers right now. It's going to be hard because the Toyotas are giving you that place differential upside as well. So maybe a mix of the 2 I like. And then Ford's could be a little bit lower owned. So Clint Bowyer could be a lower owned. So if he can get out front, maybe lead some laps early on. I don't think he will because he was 20th, 6th. He didn't even run a 10-lap average in either of those practices, which usually scares me when trying to nail down, dominators, because after qualifying, the cars were impounded, not touched until this morning. This is good. NASCAR has got back to this. They weren't really liking the way things went with those. I don't know if you remember last year, the chaos with Sunday morning inspection, where we'd have like 2 to 3 hours tops after those inspection was over to put things together, make our lineups. It was an absolute disaster. So every race that's a 3-day weekend, so that's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, NASCAR will have a setup like this weekend. So there's going to be practices on Friday, 1 and 2. There's going to be pre-qualifying inspection on Saturday, followed by qualifying, and then the cars are impounded. So their starting position after qualifying on these weekends is their starting position. If they have to change an axle, change an engine, change tires, change anything between qualifying and race, they go to the back at pace laps, but they keep their original starting position. Such is the case with Ryan Preece this week. So now that I got that out, I'm going to scroll back up and look at some questions here. 6 or 13 lineups without a planned dominator. I think you're going to need a dominator. We've seen that trend here. We don't want to forget about dominator. Like, there's been a driver lead 100+ laps. I'm just going back here. 2015 was the last time there wasn't a driver that led 100+ laps, but we had Kurt Busch lead 65 that race. We had Denny Hamlin lead 56, and we had Matt Kenseth lead 43. Kenseth and Hamlin, unfortunately, finished outside the top 20, so they didn't really stand out. Their dominator points didn't really mean anything, whereas Kurt Busch started on the pole, led those 65 laps, and finished 3rd. Kevin Harvick started 2nd in that race, led 34 laps, finished 2nd. So there were 4 drivers that led over 30 laps. I always want to plan dominator in a race like this where we've seen the trend of there being at least one driver with 100 plus, especially with the new rules package, which was last year where we've seen Kyle Busch lead 134 laps. And a lot of the drivers that started top 10 finished there. 4 of the top finishing drivers all started top 10. 3 of them finishing top 5 or started top 5, finished top 5. So definitely looking at that. So not really looking at building lineups without a plan dominator. I always want 1 or 2. And like I said, of those drivers starting top 5, I think Bowman has a good shot to get out there and lead. Kurt Busch as well. He was 4th in both practices, 2nd and 5th in 10-lap averages. So looks like he's got a car that can get up there and contend as well and possibly lead some laps early on. He's actually been very good here as well. He had a little stretch. He's finished 6th and 14th last 2 years. Had a bad stretch in 2017, 2016, he finished 24th and 30th, but before that, he was 3rd, 5th, 9th. So he's had some very high finishes here. I don't see him being as a winner. He's not going to be the guy I pick, but kind of looking at Blaney, Bowman, Busch in that area. They were the fastest cars in practice for sure. Do you think a dominator will come from a place differential play? Yeah, I talked about Blaney. I think he's got a good shot of coming from outside the top 10 starting position. Getting I think he could definitely win the race. He's probably right up there. If I had to make, 2 or 3 bets today, he would definitely be one of them. Starting 16th, I think he can get up there and give you some laps led, probably more into stage 2, start to stage 3 type thing, but late race dominator. But I think he can get that 50 plus. If there's going to be dominator spread out, which could very well be the case with the way place differential has shaken out because of qualifying, I think we could maybe see that scenario like we did in 2015 where there are 3 or 4 drivers leading 30, 40, 50 laps, and I think he's definitely going to be one of them. Okay, next question. Any thoughts on Ty Dillon? I know Dane really liked Ty Dillon this week, so you might want to check out his article and everything he said there. He is starting 24th. He didn't show me much. He was 15th in opening practice, but final practice was kind of a disaster. He's 28th, 27th in 10-lap averages. Which wasn't very good. I mean, he's finished 27th each of the last 2 years, 18th the year before that. So those are his 3 finishes in his career here. I would want, if he was starting 30th, I'd probably be a lot more excited about it. I think you could use him for GPP for sure as a pivot off of Suarez and Reddick, because I do think he's got top 20 upside, kind of that 15th to 20th. I think he could probably get there. But I'm very low on him as of right now. But I'm not saying he's going to be a fade for me. I've reserved all my lineups, haven't been able to make them, got home late last night. So once I'm done here, I'm going to start going. So we've got a ton of time. So I just wanted to make sure I reserved all my lineups. That's something I recommend to you guys in all sports, especially your smaller ones like NHL. It is a big one where if you want to play the single entry double ups, which is pretty much 95% of what I play for hockey, I go in early in the day and I reserve those lines because they fill up so fast. And by the time you get to lineup lock, you're only looking at 23-man contests. I want the bigger ones. And it's same with NASCAR. I want to get in the 3 max, the 20 max, and the main ones, not the secondary contests that come out with lower prizes. I want to get in the main ones. So I go ahead and I reserve those usually when prices come out, let them sit there for the weekend. Then I'll go and make my lineups after the live show on Sunday just to make sure that I get in those contests. I have got in a case where, rush out, family emergency, whatever, head out of the house and end up running just one lineup in all 20. That has happened in the past, but for the most part, that's not going to happen because we do have a lot of time on Sunday once the morning's over, once the live show's over and stuff like that to build lineups. Not from America. How much time left to start the race in your local time? Okay, yeah. Thanks, Deadhead, for answering that. Yeah, 5 hours to lock, a little under now. Weather. You know what? I have not looked at weather yet. I'm going to bring that up. Hear me typing. Sorry about that. So it looks like there is going to be some rain in the forecast today. I think I read about 30% from Bob Pockris. So halfway through the second stage is the race complete. You have an ad blocker. Okay, so let's look at the hourly forecast. There's not a whole bunch. 25% is the most I see until about 4 p.m., and that would be local time. So that's kind of getting into the start of the race. Few showers. So yeah, 25 to 30, 40%. So we're just going to have to wait and see there. It's going to be a pain in the ass. It's like no rain whatsoever. And then wherever NASCAR travels here to start the season, there's freaking rain every weekend. So that kind of sucks. So we'll see how that goes. Kozlowski, yeah, I've got him highlighted. He's number 2 in my overall model right now. I thought him highlighted as a green play. Him and Logano have been excellent here in those cars. Looking at their last 6 races, Kozlowski himself has gone 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 9th, 1st. Logano's gone 2nd, 5th, 5th, 4th, 7th. So they're the 2 most dominant drivers here, outside of like Kyle Busch with his lap sled and stuff like that, because Kyle's finished 1st, 3rd, and 8th. 25th, he was injured the year before, and then he was 1st, 2nd, 3rd. So most recent track history, it's been Kozlowski and Logano, and then Kyle Busch kind of fits in there as well in terms of dominating this track. Kozlowski always smart. Well, I don't know if he's smart himself. I'm not a real big fan of his, but yeah, he's definitely a good play. It looks like they've got fast cars. So if you're going Fords, it's definitely Penske for me. Blaney, Kozlowski, and Logano is going to be the way I go in terms of my Ford exposure today. Hate playing those small double ups. Yeah, it's a lot tougher playing those small ones. So I'm able to fit Kyle Busch, Hamlin, Jones, and Truex, but have to roster LaJoie or Preece. Well, Preece is going to the back on pace lap, so he's an automatic X for me because he's going to be starting with like a – sorry, I'm going to go back to that here. I like that he finished 23rd here last year. That shows a little bit of upside for a low-end driver like that, but he's starting there 20th this week and going to the back because he had an engine change, so he's starting with a negative 18 place differential, and I honestly don't see him finishing top 20. So he's got a lot of work to do just to get back to even in terms of place differential, so there's definitely zero Preece for me. You can punt LaJoie. I'm really not into him starting 26th either. These guys in the lower end, these are guys that I like starting every single week outside the top 30. So seeing a driver like that start 26th when he's never finished with a top 30 here before in his career is a no for me as well. So I'd probably reconstruct that lineup myself. You can take a shot, and if you did take a shot, I probably would take LaJoie out of that group, but I'm not going that way whatsoever. Byron or Jones. So Jones has got top 15s in both of his race, or 15th place finishes in both his races here, starting 21st. I don't have him highlighted at this time for some reason, but I do like that. The Chevys for sure stood out this week. Looking at his practice times, he was 18th and 15th, so he didn't stand out as much as his teammates, but he was 6th in 10-lap averages in that final practice. So that's very good there. He's got an elite Hall of Fame crew chief there with him, so I think they can make the right adjustments throughout the race. Jones gives you that place differential upside, however, not a whole bunch more. It gives you that 4 extra. Geez, that's close. At this time, I'm almost tempted to go Byron just because of the speed that he showed in practice. And he's got 15th here in the past. Eric Jones is kind of up and down, 19th last year, 7th and 12th. So it's very close between them. I'd probably make 2 lineups and split it down the middle and get a little bit of exposure of both in that area. That's kind of the way I look at it. I can't decide between a driver. I'll just make an extra lineup, and I will do one lineup with Byron. Jimmy's hometown, definitely on Jimmy this week. Again, back to those Chevys. He's going to be a GPP play for me just because, he's won here. It would be 2016, but he's only got 3 top 10s in his last 6 races, last 7 races here, actually. So he hasn't been as good in the short term. So a little bit more GPP for me because I do like Hamlin, Blaney, Kurt Busch, Byron, Jones below that. So right there in the middle, you got Johnson and Bowman. Those are guys I'm going to be definitely on as well. So there's going to be a lot of split ownership, I think, in that once you get in the sub 10K range, kind of in that 8K to 8K and 9K range on DraftKings, there's going to be a lot of spread out ownership, I think. So I think we can not have to worry about fading ownership or maybe a guy being too low owned. I think they're all going to see pretty equal ownership just based on track history, practice speeds, and that sort of thing. Oh, that coffee's getting cold. That's disgusting. Best value overall besides Truex. Got all the tough ones today. It's probably Byron and Jones just with their place differential upside and their actual race upside. I think they can definitely, both of them have top 10 upside this week. Maybe even top 5, especially Byron, I think, just with his practice speeds, being especially with the rest of the Chevys, being with his crew, being that he has the elite crew chief there as well. So I would say Byron would be my number 2 value behind Truex, just going down in price. I don't want to talk about another high price guy as a value, but Byron definitely stands out. Oh, we got Rowdy Bush 18 at just bad news. You just had to come in with bad news. Cold, cloudy, and windy, and rain on the way. Oh, that's awesome. Just another race weekend where we're going to have to either wait all day, get excited. Okay, they're back on track. Nope, they're back with umbrellas just like last week. So looks like we might be getting a Monday race. Either way, going to build my lineups today. Kyle Busch is a sore loser. Kyle Busch is a champion. Sore loser? No, I get it. People don't like his attitude. That's fine. I'm a fan of his because he's an elite driver. He can win at every track. To me, he's the best. Jimmy Johnson, definitely a Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm all for Jimmy Johnson. I think he is, overall, he's done a lot more than Kyle Busch in his career. Kyle Busch has done a lot, though, and will be a first ballot Hall of Famer as well. Elite company with 2 championships. Now, I'm not going to go on talking about Kyle Busch. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I am. Next 20 minutes here, we're just going to talk about Kyle Busch, if that's all right with you guys. Kidding. Flyers today at noon. Yep, go Philly. Had a good race, talking about racing. Good game the other night. Looked really good. A lot of, the young core and stuff like that. So I'm definitely excited about the way the Flyers are going. Do we stack front or stack the back? Not sure exactly what you mean. Like stacking manufacturers, stacking back. I think you need a little bit of both, to be honest. I think you're going to need that place differential upside, like with Truex, Hamlin, Eric Jones, a few of those drivers. And then I think you can't ignore dominators because, like I said, we've had a driver in each of the last 4 races lead 100-plus laps and another driver lead at least 40 laps in those races. And then before that, we had 4 drivers lead 30-plus laps. You cannot ignore It's not like Daytona where we're just loading up on guys in the back. You can actually build a lineup of everyone starting 25th and back, not even worry about names really, and just go from there. This is a completely different situation this week. You're not going to want to stack the front or the back. You're going to want a mix of both, I guess, is the best way I can answer that question. I hope that does answer your question. If it does not, throw it up in the chat here. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up at Rotor Pros or DFSR. I will we'll go into that a little bit deeper for sure. You got it, Kenny. Kyle Busch time is the best. Who would you fade from these 4? Hamlin, Jones, Kyle Busch, or Blaney? You're just here. Are you trying to bait me to say Kyle Busch? Because, I'm really looking and it's just more of a price thing for me because you can build so much more balanced lines without having to go into that sub 6K range if you take Kyle Busch out of that equation. He was 24th in opening practice, 10th in practice 2, and 13th in 10 lap averages. None of that stands out. He's one of the few drivers where you can take shitty practice, not worry about it. And he has an elite crew chief. He's an elite driver. One of the reasons why he is an elite driver, for some of you that are maybe new to NASCAR, is the communication between driver and crew chief. Big thing for drivers on the track is relaying what's happening in the car at 200 miles an hour, relaying that to the crew chief, and then that crew chief relaying it to the crew to make adjustments when they come in. And with that information, Kyle Busch relays that information to the crew chief almost better than anyone in NASCAR, any series. And that's one of the reasons why he's had success at so many different tracks is that feedback. Yeah, he can suck at some tracks, but that doesn't mean he can't win there. There's a lot of drivers that never really come close to winning at some tracks. So I'm not too concerned. The reason I say that again is I'm not too concerned with his practice times. I think he can definitely get back up there. He's got that place that would fade out of there. And I mean, if you're fading Kyle Busch, you're obviously going with Martin Truex Jr., Keselowski, that, you could definitely go that route. So maybe it makes more sense to fade Kyle Busch just because of the price thing. I don't like fading any of them 100% though. And like I said before, I'm never 100% on any driver. Too much variance. and I'll never do that. Like 80% is like the max I will go on any driver, and it all depends on the contest. If I'm doing 20 max, it's like 70 to 80% on any driver. Like I said before, if you're doing like just a 3 max entry contest, I'd probably go 2 with Truex and 1 without. You could go 100% in that scenario, but again, it could hurt you and just ruin all your lineups if, say, he had an early problem and out of the race, pretty much log off. So that's the way I look at that. Need 1 or 2 dominators and the rest place differential. Yes, K-Sizzle, that is exactly what I'm talking about. So that's awesome. We got that. What else do we got here? Yeah, the hockey scale. Unfortunately, Travis, I didn't get to play a bunch of hockey. I actually made that lineup while in the curling rink watching curling yesterday with my phone, which I never do. If I don't have my laptop, I feel lost. If I don't have multiple screens open like I do right now, I feel absolutely lost. So that took me about 2 hours to build that lineup, back and forth watching curling, and there was no freaking cell phone service yesterday. My phone said no service unless I walked out into one little corner of the rink and I could get service, or I went out and sat in my truck. So I'm glad that worked out because I did put a lot of time into that yesterday, into some of those picks. So glad to be back at home in my office, though. This is where I feel most comfortable. This is where I do my best tinkering. Pick to win the race. Went over that before. Blaney would probably be my number 1 pick to win the race today. Number 2, we're probably looking at, I have to say Kyle Busch. I'm going to have to get him in there, or Brad Keselowski, are kind of the 3 guys, I guess, that I think have a good shot at winning today. If you're making bets and stuff, but for DFS, obviously that's a little bit different. So you can see my core guys. My core is pretty tight today. I'm not really going below that 6K range on DraftKings. It's going to be more of a balanced build for me. Maybe 2 of the guys in this mid 7 and below, and then the rest from up top. And like we talked about just before this, looking at 1 to 2 dominators possibilities, and then like maybe a mid tier, and then maybe 1 or 2 place differential. Even some lineups 4 place differential, 2 dominators, that sort of thing. That's kind of the balance that I'm looking at today. Free NASCAR optimizer. I do not know of a free NASCAR optimizer. One that I've used in the past, not really big into shouting out other sites, but Roto Grinders. His optimizer, Stevie TPFL, is amazing. He's a great guy. I've got along with him. I've got to meet him in the past. He's one of the reasons I got into this whole NASCAR thing, is because I just loved his information. It's definitely worth, I think it's like $13 a week you can pay, and you can get that optimizer. You can go in and adjust your exposures. You can adjust your stacks and stuff like that. Excuse me. You can adjust the amount of salary that you leave, your minimum amount of salary. There's lots of options there. I've really enjoyed it. I know Kenny's used it as well. It's been a good product. So I would definitely check that out if you want to spend money. As for a free one, though, I'm really not sure. I've searched before, and if it's free, it's probably not worth it. You kind of get what you pay for in terms of that kind of tools nowadays. I wish I could get an optimizer on my sheets. There's a lot of formulas and a lot of stuff that go into it. It wouldn't be pretty looking if I did do it. I'm going to try. I'll give you that. I'm going to do some studying on YouTube and some shows and stuff like that, and read some books on formulas. Maybe even hire someone out that can help me with something like that. But there is a ton of work to get something up and running like that in the back end, for sure, formulas and stuff like that. So it's nothing that's coming down the pipe anytime soon. It is something I am looking at in the future, though, for sure, to add to the sheets. Even just something small where you can manually put your drivers in, you can see your exposures and stuff like that. That's something I'm working on, and then we'll maybe move it into an optimizer as time goes. Thoughts on Suarez? Yeah, talked about him as well. The place differential stands out. He's not in the same car. If you're looking at track history, 13th, 23rd, and 7th, that was with Joe Gibbs Racing, so a little bit better equipment than he is in now. He is starting 31st, though, so it definitely makes sense to get exposure to him. Like I mentioned, I'm going to have more on FanDuel because he's only 4,500. Looking at him and Tyler Reddick are only 300 apart on DraftKings. There is a difference of $2,300 on FanDuel, so I'm definitely in Suarez over on FanDuel. I like Reddick a little bit better on DraftKings myself, but I will have exposure to both, probably in 60% Reddick, 40% Suarez, if I'm just looking at those 2 drivers and how much exposure between the 2 of them. Chastain, no, I'm not really looking at my player pool right now does not consist of anyone in the sub 6K range. Oh, you said Chastain, he's 6,500. My bad. He finished 28th and 29th here. He's in better equipment. He's in Ryan Newman's number 6 car. So I definitely like that. He's qualifying 27th. He was 14th and 11th in practice. Didn't really show that long run speed, 26th and 10 lap averages in final practice. But being that he was showed top 15 speed in those practices, starting 27th is not bad at all. So he will definitely be in my player pool there as well. Thanks for bringing him up. I kind of glossed over him here a little bit. So looking at that sub 7K range on DraftKings, the exposure I'm going to have is Reddick, Chastain, and Suarez. Just above that 7K range, I'm looking at DiBenedetto and Austin Dillon. Oh, Kenny, that's wonderful. Yeah, I know you know your spreadsheets as well. Me and you and Dane kind of, that's one thing that we do have is experience with spreadsheets and stuff. And I mean, you actually use it professionally, not just for sports stats. So would definitely like to get your input on getting an optimizer and stuff ready. So definitely, guys, that's something we'll be looking into down the road. Even if it's just a simple little free one where we can make 20 max, maybe it won't be 150 or 50 lineups, but even if we can start out with like 20 lineups and you can put in, a player pool of say 8 drivers, 10 drivers, and you can punch out some lineups. That's something we'll definitely look into because it can definitely help. Building 20 lineups is a big chore for me, and I don't just go and start plugging in lineups. What I do, I just want to touch on this a little bit. This is what I'm going to do as soon as I'm done here, is I'm going to take a core of 4 drivers, probably one in the 10K plus, one in the 8-9K range, and one or two in the mid 7 and below range of the 5 drivers that I talked about in my player pool. I'm going to take 4 of those drivers and I'm going to put them in my lineup, or 3. It all depends. I'll probably start out with 4 and then work my way down to 3 driver core. But I'm going to take a 4 driver core. Let's just say, for instance, I take Truex, Hamlin, and Eric Jones. Let's just go straight Joe Gibbs Racing, and then go down and go like talked about Chastain. So we'll go with Ross Chastain. So take those 4 drivers. I'm going to put them in a lineup, and I'm going to fill in with 2 drivers. I'm going to take those same 4 drivers, and I'm going to copy that, let's say 10 times. 10 times out of my 20. I want 10 lineups with that 4 driver core that I'm very confident in. And then the other 2 drivers, I'm just going to keep switching so that all 10 of those lineups have the same 4 driver core, but are all separate and different lineups. Just so that in GPP, if you go and make 20 lineups and there's no drivers that really overlap, there's really no correlation between one lineup or another, you're kind of hedging against yourself. You need to win to be able, to cover yourself, or you're pretty much going to break even or lose a little bit or just win a tiny little bit. I'm okay with losing it all in a week if I have a shot to win it all. Which is kind of the way I look at GPP for NASCAR, or any sport for that matter, is I'm going to build that core so that if that 4 driver core, one guy's a dominator, Truex and Hamlin and Jones come from outside the top 20 starting positions, they all finish top 10, they all get max place differential, close to max place differential upside. I get my dominator and Blaney or whoever, whichever one I pick in my lineup, and that 4 driver core, my value guy picks up huge points, and maybe he's the highest finishing DK point guy in that range. So if I pick Chastain and he absolutely crushes Reddick, Suarez, DiBenedetto, and Dillon in DraftKings scoring that day, that 4 driver core goes off. I now have 10 shots to get the perfect lineup with that 4 driver core versus having just that 4 driver core once and one of the other drivers crashes, one of my other 2 drivers crashes, then I'm done. Then that 4 driver core is useless because I've only got it once in 20 lineups. Whereas the way I build, I take that 4 driver core and build it 10 times out so that if driver X crashes in the first one and maybe that driver X is in the second one, 2 lineups are dead, but I've now still got 8 lineups with that 4 driver core that crushed to try and win the GPP. So kind of long-winded, but that's how I build in terms of 20 max, 150 max, all those big GPPs, and that carries across every sport. Hockey, I'll pick a line. Line 1 from Toronto, line 2 from Arizona, let's say. Combine those. And if I'm running 20 max, I will run those 2 lines together in 5 to 10 times, and then I'll keep Toronto 1 and I'll go and grab another line combination, put them in there, run that 5 times. And then I'll switch up Toronto 1 to, say, Philadelphia 1, and then I will run 5 lineups with another line, and then 5 lineups with another line. That's kind of how I build. I want the correlation so that when my cores do go off, same with golf, four golfer core 10 times, and then mix in the other 2, then you're going to capitalize. Sure, that core could suck, and you lose it all this week. But if you're playing GPP, you need to realize you're not going to win every week. It only takes 1 week to make up for 3 or 4 bad ones. So if you're playing the risky GPP style, that is definitely what you need to realize, or it's going to be just very, very, very frustrating. In terms of hockey, basketball, those sports, I play like 90% cash. I don't play as much GPP, and it's mostly a time thing. So I normally on hockey during the week when I'm working on all the different sports, 2 different chats, 3 different chats, working on skeleton lamps, working on the cheat sheets, working on the line updates, working on the NASCAR practice and stuff. I run 1 lineup in cash in terms of hockey. And I run that 1 lineup that's in, say, $50 to $100 in double ups, single entry double ups. I will then take that and put it in, a couple single entry GPPs, just because you don't know, it might go off. Obviously, my correlations aren't there per se, because I'm running 2-man stacks instead of full line stacks. But if it does go off, I want a chance where I'm going to win a GPP. It doesn't have to be a $20 single entry. It can be just the $1 single entry, the $4 single entry. That's fine. So I'm kind of getting off track with NASCAR, but I just kind of want to get into a little bit about my lineup construction and how I go about doing that. Sizzle's doing the 3 entry max. Yep, love that 3 entry max. Favorite dominator out of that core, it would be Bowman. Out of you've got Boyer, Jimmy, Bowman, and Kurt Busch. Bowman would be the one that I choose for a dominator. Just the speed in practice just jumps off the page to me. He was first in both practices, first in 10-lap averages. I believe he was first in 15-lap averages. He's got a good long-run car. Chevys are fast. He's cheap, so that would be definitely my top dominator out of that group. I'd like to pick Kurt Busch second because of the speed, but he's not a guy that's led a lot of laps here. In terms of that, over the last 2 races, we've got Kyle Busch at 196. We've got Martin Truex at 125. Truex, could be one of those drivers, and we've seen it in the past. We've seen Kyle Busch do it before, coming from the rear, making his way to the front by, let's say stage 2, uses the first pit stop for some strategy, uses the end of stage 1 as some strategy, gets up front inside that top 5. He's a driver that could definitely give you elite place differential upside and dominator. He could get up there and lead, let's say 50 to 60 laps in the final stage, get that car going good. So definitely keep that in mind. You can really double down with that. So if you're overweight on Truex and he does that, you're definitely looking really, really good. All right, a few more questions. I'm not going to go. Realize it's almost the hour mark. I tried to make these half-an-hour shows. My kid's getting really excited down there. She's already been out here. She was a little shy. Didn't want to come say hi, though. But getting a little deep here. So if you do have questions after this, make sure to reach out to me one more time. Rotopros.com. We've got free trials over there right now. You can get into our Slack chat. Me and Kenny and Dane are in there talking NASCAR today, building lineups. So make sure to get in there, get a copy of my cheat sheet. It's got all my core plays on it. So if you're looking at the sheet, there is a legend on there, kind of explains. NASCAR is a little bit different in terms of my legend. So we got green as a core plays. Blue is going to be like GP, and I'm mostly GPP only with NASCAR anyway. So with NASCAR, blue is my secondary plays in terms of exposure, and then yellow would be the value plays that I'm looking at this week as well. And they kind of, in terms of exposure, some of them are core, some of them are more, I would say, blue, like secondary. So make sure to get into the RotoPro Slack chat, get your sheet for DFSR. Get over to dfsr.com, go to Chris's Sheets page. That's where you're going to find my NASCAR sheet. I will be in that chat as well, answering questions leading up to lock. Or you can hit me up on Twitter at Jaeger_bombs9, or send me a message on Patreon as well. I've got notifications set up for that too. So a couple more questions here, and then I'm going to take off. How can I watch the race without TV, only Wi-Fi? If you're in Canada, the TSN app which is what I use. You don't have to be a TSN subscriber like on like Bell or anything like that, or Rogers Sportsnet or whatever. You can just buy the TSN app, $20 a month, I think it is, and the race is on there. I think, like Fox Sports would have an app in the States. That's probably going to be your best bet. Fox Sports Go, I think, is what their app is called. I think you can watch the race on there if you're a subscriber. I'm not sure if you can just buy just the racing packet. I think you have to be a subscriber of one of the, I don't know what some of the, cable providers are down there, but I think that's the way you would have to do that. Jimmy Johnson, yeah, definitely have him as GPP. Chase Elliott, I'm probably lower on than the other Hendrick drivers myself. It mostly has to do with price because Jimmy, Bowman, and Byron are all in that low 9K to high 8K range or mid 8K range. So I'm a little bit lower on Elliott. Realize I haven't really talked about him at all, but he struggled in practice big time. 26th in open in practice, 7th in 10 lap averages. That was only out of 7 drivers. Also keep that in mind when looking at the sheet. 17th in final practice, 18th in 10 lap averages. So not great there either. So I'm a lot lower. Right now I don't have any Chase Elliott in my player pool. I've got a lot more Jimmy Johnson. 3% Jimmy Johnson. I'm not sure exactly how many lineups you're building. Seems a little low. I'd probably be around that 5 to 10%, I guess, right now. Yeah, you have to have a cable subscription. Thanks, Travis. Just making sure. Should I fade Dominator and cash and just go place differential? No, don't do that. Races where we see a lot of trends towards drivers leading 100-plus laps, a lot of Dominators. In years past, you do not want to fade a Dominator. I would definitely try and get one of those two. Pick 2 guys that you think are going to be good Dominators. Like I said, I like Bowman. I think Blaney's got a chance to get up front as well and lead some laps later in the race. Truex is more of an outside contrarian Dominator, I guess you could say, because he's starting at the back. But that's definitely the way I'm looking at that. So keep that in mind. I would not fade it in cash whatsoever. You're doing 130 laps. So 3%. Of course, I'm going to need a calculator to do that. And my keypad's not working. Just riveting video right here. Me working with the calculator. Yeah, so about 4 lineups out of 130. Yeah, that seems low to me. I'd probably go 10 to 15% on Jimmy if you're doing 130 lineups. I'd have a lot more Bowman than Jimmy, but I definitely go a little bit more Jimmy just because I really do like the Chevys today. And like I said, I would rank those Chevys Bowman, Byron, Jimmy, and Elliott just due to price. Elliott hasn't been fast in practice, so he's definitely a little bit lower. But okay, so that is it for me. I'm going to log off. But like I said, if you got questions, hit me up on RotoPros, DFSR, my Patreon, Twitter. Send an email, send a carrier pigeon, send whatever you need. Let's go build some laps. Let's see some green screens. Thank you so much for the support and joining me this week. Let's crush it.